Hi, Diane. Nice to see everybody logging on. I'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Really wish I could see everybody else at this point. I'm seeing all my colleagues log in right now, which is kind of neat. Wondering if you could let me know that you can see my first slide and what exactly you're seeing on your screen. If you're seeing the slide and then me. Okay, good. Thanks, Krista. Thank you. Perfect. Awesome. This new technology. Good. Okay, just a couple of minutes and then I will officially start. I'll just let people log in. Thanks, Kelly. Hi, Cindy. Lots of people still joining in. And just making sure for those who have arrived, you should see a window with me at the top and a PowerPoint slide at the bottom. There will be times throughout today's presentation that I will stop sharing my webcam and just focus on the slide. But right now you should see both. Hey, Sharon. And Cheryl from 19 Wing. Maxim, hey, welcome. Millie. Lots of familiar names. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I think we're going to get started. My name is Lisa Rafossi, and I'm out of 8 Wing, CFB Trenton. I'm the manager of health promotion there, and we're a team of 5. Thank you for joining me today for stress management. We will have a slide deck that we will follow. Hopefully, we will make this presentation as interactive as possible. Please feel free to use the chat for any questions, comments, thumbs up, anything that you'd like to share. I welcome that. These are unprecedented times, so we're going to use the technology that we have to present a morale welfare presentation from the social wellness portfolio. As I get started, I will just remind you that I will be removing the webcam occasionally, and we will focus on the slide deck that you have in front of you. All right. Oh. Before we get started, hang on. Can everybody else hear me? One second. Sorry, just one second. I think I've had a technical setback. Okay, good. Perfect. Now if I can just get rid of this one screen and we'll be good. All righty. Sorry, my screen's now hanging. Just one second, please. I'm glad you can hear me. There we go. I think I'm back on track. So the first slide, we're going to move through this presentation. First slide before we get started. If you were involved with us yesterday, if you participated yesterday, you would have seen something similar, but just a little bit of information as we launch. The presentation you're about to view is intellectual property of Department of National Defense. Any reproduction or retransmission of the slides contained is forbidden. I'll let you read through that, but basically, very important to know that some of the things that we discussed today may be of a sensitive nature and not appropriate for children, so please just ask for parental discretion at this time. People's stories are their own to tell, and anything that is shared by participants in this webinar is not to be discussed outside of the webinar. And then this webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing later on CAF Connection. You'll see that it encourages active participation, and as mentioned, I hope that we can use the interactive chat room as often as possible as we continue in maybe not a face-to-face format, but this new technological format, and here we go. All right, let's get started. The first slide here is not meant to be a trick slide. In fact, who experiences stress? Well, the answer obviously is we all do. As I mentioned, we're in unprecedented times. And for an example, this morning, my 18-year-old said, where are you going, Mom? And I guess it was because I wasn't wearing Roots track pants and perhaps I brushed my hair today. And I said, I'm going to the guest room, of course. So stress is everywhere, and under the circumstances, what a great opportunity today for us to discuss something that hopefully we can get some more tools about, and we can come up with some strategies as we work through all sorts of examples of stress, not only with what we're dealing with now, but just the stresses of everyday life. Okay, the next slide. What I'd like to hear from everybody is what you think or how you think we could define stress. So if you wouldn't mind using your chat now and jotting down a couple of either examples of words that you associate with the concept of stress. Kevin suggested being overwhelmed. Very good. not feeling like you have control, anything that takes us out of our comfort zone, for sure. Being overwhelmed, parenting, feeling outside of our normal zone, unrealistic timelines. Absolutely. The unknown, change, things we cannot control. All great examples. This graphic of the zebra, I'm sure everybody in health promotion has seen before. And as I was putting together the slide deck, I was like, oh, not the zebra again. And then I realized, wait a second, that depicts exactly how probably a lot of us are feeling right now, that we're losing our stripes if we had them, that in fact, we're just not sure. And love the look on the zebra's face, because never before has this graphic been so profound from one of our portfolios. Kyle mentioned balance, and we're going to talk about that. Can everyone hear me? Good. And is the slide deck back? Awesome. Okay, we'll just pick up where we left off. Nothing like somebody gave me an example. Nothing like real life stress here. Hopefully, we'll just continue to go with this. If this happens again, I'm resilient. I'll be able to bounce back from this. So if you can just bear with me here. Okay, so the slide that's up right now is, in fact, just a couple of definitions. So what we'll do, oh, perfect, always happens to me. Thank you, Diane. Technology strikes again, absolutely. Okay, and the PowerPoint is flashing in and out. Is that better? Okay, now. All right. Had to turn the webcam off because you're going to see my face going red. All righty. So this next slide, over to everybody else. How do you know you're stressed? If you wouldn't mind sharing with me a couple of symptoms that let you know that you're in fact having a bit of a stress reaction. Good, thanks, Lucy. Your face goes red as well. Okay, racing heart, body aches, harder to focus, patience. Kevin, vein in his forehead bulges. Awesome. So the good news is we all are aware of what some of our symptoms of stress are. And as we launch into the presentation, we want to keep this a little bit light. but recognizing that when we start talking about stress and how we manage stress, that there are going to be lots of tools available to us, not only education and awareness like today's presentation, but also reaching out to EAP and or to mental health practitioners and or to your social network. So as we launch through this presentation, yes, we're going to try to have some fun, but we also want to recognize that there are very real stressors that people are dealing with. And I don't want today's presentation to be a substitute for other resources that you may have to make available to you or to someone in your network. Okay, so lots of great examples of how we know we're stressed. The next slide, what do people do if they're stressed? I want you to imagine that you had a tough day, really tough work day or personal day. What does the night look like? When you finally have put the day behind you, what are you going to do to get through that? And if you wouldn't mind sharing in the chat room, go for a run. So physical fitness for Cheryl, take a nap, chat with my husband, have a glass of wine, get outdoors. Lots of great examples. Breathe, go for a walk, breathe. Awesome. So the good news is we have lots of tools in our toolbox to manage through our stress. Alone time to decompress, listen to music, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So we all know when we're stressed. We all have some tools to manage our stress. And now we want to connect how important it is to actually continue to manage our stress. So this next slide reminds us that the more stress management we practice, the more we can handle life's demands. So the key here will be developing some skills. Have some maybe tools that you didn't consider before, or taking a look at an inventory of what you're currently doing, what you could be doing, what you might want to try, and sharing, like today, with what successes other people have for managing their stress. The last line on this particular slide talks about the benefits to why we should manage stress. And those include being happy, healthy, and being more productive. So lots of great reasons to continue our efforts in stress management. And as we move through the next slide, a lot of people have probably seen this one before. It reminds us that stress takes place as a three-stage process. We have an event that occurs, then we have this mental filter where we interpret or judge, and then we either don't manage it and or in fact we go to the green and we do manage it. Really important as I look at that slide deck, that first slide's not too far off in my driveway. It's almost happened before. But the event could be external or internal. So something happens and then in fact we interpret it. So think of a time when an event occurred, a stressor occurred, and then how you interpreted or judged it and what that did. Did you go to the red, not managing, or did you go to the green and manage? I'll give you an example of how easily it can be that we go to the red and we don't manage it, or we allow that middle portion of this three-stage process, the interpretation or the judgment, to really change and impact the stressor. So imagine you're sitting at work and at a different time, sitting at work and your phone lights up and it's your kid's school. I remember this happening once, and the first thing I thought, so mental filter, was, oh no, somebody's fallen in the playground. We have an injury. They're calling me about an injury. Boom, I went right to not managing the stress. So interpreting it and judging it, that's where we have some control. What I could have said is, oh, the school is calling. I wonder what this is about. And in actual fact, the one day that it happened, it was nothing negative at all. But it was a great reminder of how a mental filter, our mental filter, can really change the outcome of a stress event. So the next slide just reminds us of that. Often it isn't the actual change event that causes our stress. It's the way we view it. Your child's school calling you should not actually cause you stress, but the way you view it, in fact, might. Our next two slides, and I always say this, so sorry for my colleagues who are on the line. These next two slides are my most favorite because they're the most poignant to me. The reactions to stress are the first slide, and the next one you'll see are the chronic effects of stress. And we have 6 that are listed here on this particular slide, from behavioral, social, spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical. Today, when I asked how everybody experienced stress and or how they knew they were stressed, a lot of people wrote down physical symptoms, mental symptoms, behavioral symptoms, social symptoms, but recognizing that spiritual and mental, all 6 of these are very important to recognize how the way we hang on to our stress can have such an impact on us. So basically, if we take a look at any of those, it's probably safe to say we've all experienced some reactions to stress. Now, this slide becomes more poignant when we look at the one following it. And that is that if we choose not to take some control in areas of our life that we can, then this chronic stress on our health becomes much more profound. So if you look at physical, what was an elevated heart rate and blood pressure concerns are now coronary heart disease concerns. What was under emotional or behavioral, a lack of concentration, mental, impaired judgment, all of these things have become a little more substantial when we look at how we hang on to them or carry them with us and not action them can have such a profound impact on us. So I leave those 2 slides with you as a bit of a reminder of a few slides back of why it's important that we do, in fact, learn to manage our stress. So the next slide, do we need some good news? Absolutely. Learning about stress and how to manage it can be an absolute lifesaver. So this is an opportunity for us to take an inventory of what we're doing and also taking a look at what's happening in our lives right now and how there might be new stressors, things that we never considered before. Maybe it's working from home, maybe it's the work-life balance. Maybe it's the unknown about what the next few weeks are going to look like, few months are going to look like. So we have to recognize that, yes, it can be good news, but we also are going to be cognizant of the fact that there could be stressors that we didn't consider before. So this next slide reminds us that we do have some power. We have lots of capability here when we take a look at the stressors in our life, and if we log them as things that we can control and things that we can action. So for example, a situation that we're working from home right now, that is not something we have any control over, but we in fact can take action. So we are going to work to master it. We're going to work to accept it. If there's something that you have absolutely no control over, and you don't take action, you'll see this quadrant reminds us that we want to place our emphasis in the 2 green zones, the mastery and the acceptance. So think of some of the stresses in your life and think of the ones that you have control over and that you can take action. So again, working from home, we don't have a lot of control over that. We are going to work to accept that. When we try to take action on things that we cannot control, you'll notice that this slide reminds us that that is putting effort in an area that we cannot make change. So this is a reminder that from a personal power perspective, we want to place our emphasis in areas that we can control and that we can take action. I often use an example of taking a conference on stress management, and the facilitator asked us to log the stresses that are currently occupying our thoughts. And I logged far too many, probably 10 or 15. And the lady next to me logged about 2 or 3. The facilitator at the front of the room then said, I want you to take a look at your list, and I want you to scratch off any of those stressors that you do not have any control over. And the reality is that now my list got pared down. Didn't really get back to where the lady next to me was with just 1 or 2 or 3 on her list. But in fact, it was a good reminder that I should only place emphasis on those things that I have control over. And I would encourage you to do the same. So we're going to talk about how the control piece, when we have control and we can take action, that is where we're going to put our emphasis and our energy. And this next slide reminds us that our lifestyle choices are some of those things that not only can cause us stress, but that in fact we can take some control over. So health habits, caffeine, insufficient sleep, poor nutrition, tobacco, drugs, alcohol, poor work-life balance, exercise, not enough, too much, long work hours, shift work, commuting, travel, financial problems, social isolation or social overextension. And then the last one, this concept of social distancing or physical distancing. I was reminded recently that what we should be doing is physically distancing, but not in fact socially distancing. We can still remain connected while maintaining the physical distance that's required. So we'll take a look at a lot of these lifestyle choice stressors, and hopefully as we take an inventory, take stock of where we're at, we can apply some tools, strategies, and thoughts for moving forward. So this next slide reminds us that lifestyle and our personal power, all of these things that we can work on can help to manage our stress. And we want to focus on mastery, one of the green zones in the personal power grid. And we want to create a stress management lifestyle. What a perfect opportunity right now to place some emphasis in an area of our overall wellness that can actually help us get through what we're going through. So this reminds us about the whole physical fitness concept, that if we're physically fit, we have a smaller stress response. We have more efficient coping systems. We tend to be inoculated to repeated stressors. People who work out a lot report lower perceived stress. And then, of course, there's the correlation to being physically fit and the health benefits that are associated with that. So we're in a work environment where this is something we talk about all the time. We recognize the health benefits of physical fitness. We also recognize that physical fitness can happen anywhere. It can happen in your home, your yard, your garage. You can use apps. You can have a mini gym at home where you can do workouts that are just body weight and cardio. You don't need a fitness facility accessible to you. This is an opportunity to be creative. And lots of great resources online for us right now, dfit.ca. So many of the health promotion cells are putting up Facebook posts and Instagram posts and helping enable people to take control over their life right now at a time of uncertainty. So we don't need the gym, we just need the personal power. This next slide is a reminder that the fitness industry has given us some tips, that there's certain times a day that do different things from a stress management perspective. So how does everybody here in this chat room, how does everybody here approach their fitness? Is it a morning? Is it a lunch hour? Is it an evening approach? Is it to get ready to face the challenge of the day, get it out of the way? Is it a recharge? Is it at the end of the day to let go and get rid of the worries? So please share with me. Lunchtime squash game. Awesome. Morning and evening. Good. Awesome. Very good. So lots of different variances. Lunchtime or wherever I can fit it in. So that's awesome. So it's safe to say from the industry statistics that when we schedule it and we plan it, we are more likely to do it and to take action over it. So that's great. I'm glad to see that everybody has a different approach, and sometimes it's just making sure that you make it happen. So nutrition tips. Yesterday, Victoria and Madison walked us through lots of amazing information about nutrition. And some of the things that they discussed are listed on this slide. We want a nutrient-packed diet. We want to be able to eat regularly. Love it. Brenda just, sorry, I have to stop and pause for a second because she mentioned that sometimes her fitness looks like dancing in her kitchen. Back to nutrition, eat regularly, make mealtime a chance to slow down. Victoria talked about mindfulness and the new CFG messaging. So making sure that mealtime, we're mindful about the way we cook, the way we eat, the socialization associated with it. We place emphasis on food groups. We watch our portion distortion. We eat breakfast. We go with the dietitians of Canada messaging where we look for great choices versus the choose rarely choices. And then the last bullet point talks about cutting down on caffeine. Have to say that this time right now, working from home, that has never been more true to take a look at caffeine consumption. So this next slide just reminds us that sometimes we can have too little or we can have too much. Too much of a good thing is still too much. We're not advocates for making sure everybody takes in caffeine, but the messaging from our portfolio is to know your personal sensitivity. Know where your limit is, whether that's 1 unit or 2 cups of coffee a day, but making sure that you know the symptoms of too much caffeine, just like we know the symptoms of what stress feels like. They're very similar. Okay, so caffeine and stress, just a couple of reminders. The personal sensitivity piece, if we have too much, it could trigger that fight or flight response. It could increase cortisol, which can decrease our immune function. Really important right now that we are mindful of our stress hormones. Caffeine may also increase the feelings of stress while we're performing stressful tasks. So, as mentioned, too much caffeine is what we're concerned about, and just knowing what your personal sensitivity is, and knowing that there's lots of other ways to substitute, in fact, the benefits that you would typically get from caffeine. So fresh air, water, exercise, a mind exercise. So lots of different things that you could do to maintain your cognitive skills, but also to stay alert and refreshed. So this next slide just reminds us of the stress hormone concept, that we obviously want to make sure that cortisol is something that we are aware of, and long-term stressors and the association with cortisol make us at risk or susceptible to illness, can expand the waistline, increase our risk of anxiety, depression, and ultimately speed up our aging process. So another great reason why we want to embark on a stress management lifestyle approach, working on areas that we can control and that we can action. This just reminds us that not all coping mechanisms are positive. With alcohol, everything is in moderation and follow low-risk drinking guidelines. And then the other 2 graphics remind us about tobacco and gambling. So just being mindful that there are people out there in our networks that are using stress management tools that in fact might not be the most positive. Great reminder to look for other tools in addition to what we're already doing to maintain that stress-free lifestyle. This reminds us that sleep is really important. I was watching a show the other night on how we don't want sleep deprivation in a time where we are more stressed than normal. So it ends up being like this snowball effect, that if we are deprived of our sleep, it releases cortisol into the bloodstream. And now take a look at what the next day looks like. Now you might be taking in more caffeine and exceeding your personal sensitivity, which can increase your feelings of stress, which can release cortisol into the bloodstream. So very important to take note of the lifestyle choice of working on our sleep. Great timing, because in the last year we've been introduced to the balance strategy, and one of our 4 Ps for that strategy is emphasis on sleep. So there's no shortage of information out there to remind us of how important this concept of getting a good night's sleep really is, and how it has a role to play in the way we manage our stress. So 2 hours before bed, avoid caffeine, alcohol, nicotine, exercise, making sure we are getting the sleep that we need. Some people, in fact, have no problem exercising before a workout. In some cases, or before going to bed. In some cases, depending on what that exercise looks like, maybe it's a yoga routine, maybe it is a swim. There are certain types of activity that people don't find interfere with their sleep quality, but as a rule, those 4 things are suggested ideas to consider. This next slide talks about work-life balance. So can we use the chat room again? How is everybody doing with the working from home and a schedule? Does anybody want to share what that looks like for them? I've included 2 references, one from Forbes. They did this great piece on working from home and having children all around us. And the other day, Mike reminded us that he does a lot of work with a dog close by. And the other slide or reference from the other graphic reference from an article in Bloomberg talks a lot about the whole concept of not getting ready for work. So does anybody want to share what that looks like for them? Do people employ a schedule? Do you still include balance in your workday? Schedule, yes, good. Keep a routine. Kevin says it's tough to separate the work and the life balance. Absolutely. We have this urgency to answer our phones and our emails because we want to be gainfully employed, we want to be productive, and we want to make sure that we are still maintaining a work day similar to what we are accustomed to. That's good. I only come up at break and lunch. So Diane suggested that she gets dressed, tries to keep the same routine as at work, and will only come upstairs, I suspect. Okay. Brenda reminds us that there are constant interruptions and that our work creeps into private times. Absolutely. Great point. And how do we deal with that? Do we accept it, or do we work to look for strategies to not allow our private time to be blocked off? Krista mentioned she tries to keep a schedule between her computer use and the kids using it for school work. Great point. So currently we're 3 people working from home. Nobody's very happy with me right now because everybody had to turn Wi-Fi off, but that is in fact a consideration or a change and or a strategy that we all have to consider. Lucy mentioned she's just trying to figure it out. Steep learning curve on a new way to do business. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. I think I set up my home office about 4 times, and then I actually had to pull my calendar from my wall at work and put it on the wall of my home office just so it actually felt like work. So everybody's a little bit different. Some people have learned to transition into this new normal. And Cheryl mentioned she's keeping the new normal routine. That's awesome. Balance by taking breaks, lunch and family time, gathering together, keep the family involved. So great suggestions. Please feel free to steal some of these great suggestions as we all try to work through this new normal. So we recognize that this work-life balance concept could contribute to our stress, but it could also be an opportunity for us to be creative and to take some control and to action an area that may, in fact, alleviate some stress. So I encourage you to keep working through it and looking for what that new normal could be like from your current work from home situation. Okay, next slide. This reminds us that our social network has never been more important, um, even a remote network. So I'm sure so many people have started to do the Zoom teleconferences with family or friends that they never thought that they would consider doing. So great opportunity to maintain our social and to also take a look at our social resources as a huge proponent of what our resilience piece can look like. So we want to keep those resources up so we can maintain our resilience in difficult times. And then it also talks about finances and the power piece, to use that grid, things that we have control over and that we can action. So an opportunity to manage our finances right now, to put some emphasis in an area that will help alleviate stress. Good news is gas prices are really low. We're not going anywhere. But we do recognize that there are a lot of very serious concerns out there for our colleagues, for our family members, for our network. So recognizing that this is an important stressor to give some attention to. The next slide talks about negative self-talk. And again, when we look at the things we choose to do when we can action and we have control, this is an area that we could be mindful of or take inventory of. So my example of the school calling, and right away I thought, oh, somebody's hurt. That would be a great example or a bad example of negative self-talk. So we want to be mindful that when we speak to ourselves in a non-positive manner, that's only going to contribute to our stress. So recognizing that if these are things that resonate with you, that in fact maybe this is an area that you could place some emphasis on. Mind trap stressors. So the unrealistic expectations, the over-identifying with who we are. This is not who we are right now. This is not what we're used to. This all or nothing thinking, taking on other people's problems as your own. These mind trap stressors are also going to be examples of things that can contribute to stress. So we want to recognize those as barriers for our stress management lifestyle that we are aspiring to achieve. So personality type stressors. I'd like to say that's a real picture of my home office. It could be until this morning when I cleaned it in the off chance that everybody was going to see it. But personality type stressors, really important to recognize where we fit in. So if we look now at what our new work arrangements are, our overachieving personality types contributing to a new normal stress. Are we caretakers? Are we doing too much? Are we victims? Are we workaholics? So we know that our emails and our texts can come in all day and all night. Do we recognize what that's doing to impact our ability to manage our stress? We're still allowed to say no. We're still allowed to look after ourselves. Probably more than ever is this important for us. So maybe there's an opportunity to be mindful of what personality stressors are contributing to your overall wellness. So this slide reminds us that we can take an inventory of who we are and what's getting us down. What is a barrier to the success of an otherwise stress management work day, work week, or even leave the word work out of that, a day, a week, a month. So take a look at the areas that you might want to place some emphasis on. These next few slides are going to talk about some fairly simple strategies. So again, not to confuse this with a substitution for very real mental health resources. If somebody you know or yourself are experiencing some stress injuries, then certainly seek out professional help. We're going to have fun with this. We're going to talk about a couple of different options, and I encourage you to share what's working for you in 1-minute stress strategies. So the number one at the top there is laughter. Laughter's never been more important. Gotta love Facebook in times like this. There's lots of really funny posts. The one that I'm reminded of was something about 30 days, half September, and then it goes on, except for the month of March, which has 800 days. There's lots of opportunities for laughter right now. You'll notice I shared a graphic of a Carol Burnett, Tim Conway skit taken from a really funny excerpt from a show that some of you may be familiar with. Laughter is really important. It doesn't take long to find an opportunity to laugh or to recognize an opportunity when you can laugh. So I encourage you to continue to laugh. The next thing on this slide talks about abdominal breathing, and a lot of you are already doing that. And of course, as health promotion educators, we're always reminded that abdominal breathing, tactical breathing, meditation, any of those things that encourage the concept of purposeful breath is important when we're looking at a stress strategy. So if meditation is not something you're currently doing, this might be an opportunity when you take inventory of areas that you can work on. That might be something you do place emphasis on. And you might even want to work it into your new normal work schedule where you take time throughout the workday for abdominal breathing. We have the acronym HALT. So take a moment for a stress strategy, a 1-minute stress strategy, and ask yourself, are you stressed or are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? So a great reminder of things that also might be impacting you and not necessarily a stress response. Perspective, really important. This says 5-year question, but even an opportunity now, switch perspectives, 4-month question, 1-year question. Will this be as profound a year from now? Will this be the situation 5 years from now? So perspective will be huge. And there's lots of opportunities for us to reflect on our perspective. So that's an easy 1-minute stress strategy to just do a perspective check. Positive self-talk. So really important tool. We see it as a mental fitness exercise in another one of our Strengthening the Forces courses. Positive self-talk has the benefit of that whole 3-stage process, the interpretation, the judge piece, the middle step of the stress response process. So if we can be encouraged to speak positively at that point and not negatively, that will help us yield the green, which is we're hoping to get to, which is managing a stress response. Grounding techniques, there's lots of them out there. An example of one that you might be aware of is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Taking a look at 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things you could touch, 2 things you can taste, 1 thing you can smell. There would be an example of just 1 minute or less, taking everything in from a sense perspective to do a bit of a Control-Alt-Delete for maybe some stressful thoughts. Mindfulness. Yesterday in the nutrition brief, we were reminded of how important that is even from a nutrition perspective. But take a 1-minute approach to just being mindful. Sitting at home, taking in your surroundings, taking a look at things that perhaps you hadn't noticed before. 1-minute stress strategy. Send somebody a text. Pick up the phone, give them a call. Talk to somebody for a minute or 2 just to work through whatever it is that you may be concerned about. And journaling, writing things down. Sometimes writing an excerpt in your journal about how you're feeling helps you have by means of half, like cut in half, the concern you have. So great opportunity right now to start the journaling process. So what are you currently doing to manage your stress? And let's take a look at things that you might consider. So in the next couple minutes, we're going to place emphasis not so much on what we're currently doing, but what we might consider as a result of recognizing there are tools out there that we haven't participated in. So I'd like you to take the opportunity to type in the chat room things that you might consider trying that you've never tried before, or that were just not in your toolbox before, or things that maybe need more emphasis, that maybe there was a time where you used to go for a lot of walks, but now you started to do mostly group fitness classes, and this situation now, in fact, presents an opportunity for you going back to something that you maybe once enjoyed. So something different. So if you wouldn't mind taking, very good. The 5, 4, 3, yeah, really great. Control, Alt, Delete. An awesome opportunity to sort of take control of your thoughts back, especially if you're having ruminating negative thoughts about something. Yoga and meditation. Perspective. Thanks, Kevin. Absolutely. In this time, for sure, our perspective will be really important. Amy, hey, Amy. Exercising at home, reading for the fun of it. So I know that Brenda reads a lot, and a lot of it is work related. So her consideration, as she's written, is going to be reading for the fun of it. Same as Ben, halt. Meditation, I have a hard time quieting your little voice. Great comment, because that's so shared, I'm sure. Deep breathing and essential oils. Tammy has shared that she's going to start speaking with distant family more often. Amy's just given us one of our strategies of laughter. She said she just ordered a puzzle and it should arrive by the 7th of July, according to Indigo. That's awesome. So that's good that you got a puzzle coming. It's also good that you've provided us a giggle. More yoga, absolutely. So the great news, and we've seen so many of them, just so you know, I'm on all the HB Facebook pages, as we all are, all the CAF Connection sites, great resources for us to take a look at the workouts that our fitness colleagues are posting, DFIT is posting. So please avail yourself to all of those resources that are available to us. Group chat with family, sending funny memes. That's a good one, Jill. Awesome. There's some amazing memes out there, like the ones of the dogs with the voiceovers singing songs about what's going on. My daughter is convinced our dog has a sprained tail because he's wagging it so much because he's so happy we're around. Cheryl, yes. Okay, so the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Charles Schulten was his name. He was an educator, and he came up with this concept of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which we know from a mental fitness perspective is getting a lot of traction. We have a lot of military members that talk about it as a tool that they use often. And you just find a quiet moment and you use your senses. So 5 things that you can see, and you just say those to yourself. 4 things that you can hear, and you just take note of that. 3 things that you could touch. 2 things that you can taste, and 1 thing that you can smell. And it literally takes less than a minute, and you are enabled with an opportunity to get the control back of your thoughts. So, for example, you're nervous going into maybe a presentation or a speech or something that typically makes you nervous. this would be an opportunity for any of those thoughts that are wandering around that might be negative, for you to just say, stop, I'm going to take control back and use this sensory strategy. Perfect. Thanks, Cindy. Plan on finishing a hooked rug that I started when, wow, that's awesome. Very cool. Very good. Thank you for sharing that, Cindy. So currently doing and what you might consider. I equate the stress management lifestyle approach to taking inventory of your fitness equation. So as we know, fitness is one of the great stress management tools. We often are challenged in that industry to take a look at things that we haven't considered. And this, similar to that, is an opportunity to take a look at things that you haven't considered. So one of my stress management tools, I didn't type it, I'll just share it, is to not watch as much television, because the TV was starting to be a bit of a stressor. And it's one thing to be informed, but it's another thing to be stressed by the information. So that is something that I am currently doing. Although I still want to be informed, I don't want to be obsessed to the information that is continuing to get me down from a stress perspective. And then the other thing is the laughter. I know that there's a lot of opportunity for people to find funny situations, and or read funny things online, or just laugh at things for the sake of laughing at it. And that is something that I will continue to consider how I can insert that in the day, because working from home with a family of four, all working from home, as I'm sure for many of you, is a new normal, new challenge, and we have to keep our sense of humor. Okay, the next slide is just a review, and it just reminds us that this is about creating a vision, a plan, a regime for stress management lifestyle through all of our healthy choices, through exercise, through nutrition, through sleep, through our caffeine intake, taking a look at those stress hormones and our immune function and the impact that that could have, the abdominal breath, the laughter, the perspective piece, what our strategies currently are, what they could be, what our work life is presenting to us as more stressful situations, knowing our personality and what we're bringing to this stress management concept. And then, of course, creating and envisioning an action plan that increases your mastery and your control. So an opportunity just to reflect. I'm just turning back the webcam. Last couple of slides. This slide just reminds us that we want to keep our immune system strong. We want to continue to normals in place. We do want to consider this a priority, and we want to consider a priority for the health of it. Lots of health benefits associated with the lifestyle that is about stress management. So I encourage you to use today as a platform to just revisit what you're currently doing and what you might want to consider. Before I get to the resource page, are there any questions? Cheryl's asking how the weather is for everybody back east, and are people able to get outside? It's really great in Trenton today. Sun is shining. Can't complain. It's going to be 10 or 11 degrees. Any other questions? Reference today's presentation. I'm just going to pop up the resource slide. So if you require any resources, as the slide suggests, there's CIFMAP. There's also REAP. There's Canada Suicide Hotline. There's information on COVID-19 through canada.ca. We have our family information line, Sexual Misconduct Response Center, our Kids Help phone lines, and most of our local bases have an initiative that are more resources available to the members at their wing or base. So please avail yourself to those resources. Will the webinars be continuing is the question. Yes, there's a schedule throughout the week, and my understanding from Mike and Orsolia is that this will continue, and that these will be recorded and thus able to be used down the road, and accessible from afar. So if you don't have any other questions for me, I wish you an amazing day, and let's get through this together, and let's use all the tools and resources that we have available to us in our networks, and stay well. Thanks everybody for the comments. Have a great Tuesday. Hi.